Let's talk about requirements. On paper, requirements are supposed to be the foundation of testing. They define what the system should do, and testing verifies that it does it. That's the theory. In real projects, that's rarely how it works. Very often, requirements are copied. Copied from previous products, copied from older versions, copied from templates that were never fully cleaned up. You end up with features that no longer exist, features that behave completely differently now, and sometimes important behavior that isn't described at all. The document exists, but it doesn't describe reality. This is usually the moment when testers stop following requirements and start thinking. They think like users. They think like someone who doesn't know the system internally. They think about flows, failures, and consequences. And they design tests based on that understanding, not on what's written. Not because they want to break the process, but because testing the document would miss the product. Then audits arrive, or process reviews, or quality gates. And suddenly the conversation shifts, not to whether the product was tested well, but to whether all requirements are covered. Every requirement must have a test. Every test must point back to a requirement. On paper, this looks like control. In practice, it changes the focus completely. Because covering requirements is not the same as testing the product. When the goal becomes 100% requirement coverage, all requirements are treated as equal. A core business function, a minor corner case, a legacy behavior nobody uses anymore. One requirement, one test. No distinction, no prioritization, no signal about what actually matters. There's no way to express importance. No risk level, no star rating, no "this will break the business if it fails." So, time pressure pushes testers into a predictable pattern. One requirement, one test, move on. Coverage goes up, confidence does not. At this point, tests start turning into documentation. They exist to prove compliance. They exist to satisfy audits. They exist to show progress. But they don't necessarily explore behavior. They don't challenge assumptions. They don't protect value. They describe. The irony is that testers still make the real decisions. They decide what actually needs attention. They decide where the risk is. They decide what deserves deeper testing. But that work is mostly invisible. It doesn't show up in coverage metrics. It doesn't show up in dashboards, and it's hard to explain in reports. So it often goes unnoticed. What is visible is documentation, traceability matrices, coverage numbers, links between tests and requirements. So more documentation is added, and less time is left for actual testing. None of this means requirements are useless. They matter, but they are rarely the foundation of testing in practice. They are a starting point, a reference, sometimes just a constraint. Real testing happens where documents stop being helpful. This gap between formal process and real behavior isn't a failure of testers. It's how complex systems are tested under pressure. And pretending otherwise doesn't improve quality, it just improves paperwork. That's the reality most testing teams live with, quietly, daily, and usually without being asked.